blood streamed from Padre Pio's eyes the night he witnessed a vision so harrowing that it left him speechless for 7 days. A man of unwavering faith, a mystic who bore the wounds of Christ for half a century, Padre Pio received a prophecy just months before his death, one that was so disturbing it was sealed away until now. A time has arrived. What I am about to share with you is not just another prophecy, it is an urgent divine warning. The Holy Spirit has made it clear that these truths can no longer remain hidden. What Padre Pio saw in his final days is beginning to unfold before our very eyes. Most people remain unaware, caught up in the distractions of daily life. But those with spiritual discernment can already sense the shift. Padre Pio was no ordinary mystic. He could read souls, appear in multiple places at once, and heal the sick through prayer. Even the Vatican acknowledged his extraordinary gifts. But his final vision was unlike anything he had ever received before. What he saw was so overwhelming that he wept tears of blood. And now, in 2025, the second of his 3 prophetic signs has come to pass. Let me take you back to that fateful night in 1968, when he was alone in his cell at the monastery of San Giovanni Rotondo. A brilliant light filled the room, and his fellow friars later recounted hearing a painful cry from within. When they found him, he was trembling, his face wet with blood-stained tears. What he saw that night was a sequence of events that would lead to what he called the Great Warning. The first sign, a world out of balance. The first of these events has already been fulfilled. In 2024, we witnessed natural disasters unlike anything in recorded history: earthquakes, floods, and firestorms that seemed almost biblical in scale. But according to Padre Pio, these disasters were only the beginning. The second sign, the one that is happening now in 2025, is even more alarming. Padre Pio spoke of a time when the natural order of the world would be disrupted. Seasons would shift unpredictably, flowers would bloom in winter, and snow would fall in the heat of summer. On the surface, this may seem like nothing more than unusual weather patterns. But in his vision, it was clear that this was far more than just climate change. This disruption was a spiritual sign, a warning from God that humanity had strayed too far from Him. He saw the world unraveling, with confusion spreading not only through nature, but through society itself. The second sign, a darkness unlike any other. The most terrifying part of Padre Pio's prophecy was his vision of the 3 days of darkness. This was no ordinary darkness. It wasn't just the absence of sunlight, but a spiritual blackness so thick and overwhelming that only those with blessed candles would be able to see. During these 3 days, demons would roam freely in physical form, attempting to deceive even the most faithful. People would hear familiar voices outside their doors, only to realize too late that these were not their loved ones but dark spirits sent to test their faith. But before these 3 days arrive, a great deception will take hold of the world, one that is already beginning in 2025. Padre Pio saw that technology would be used as a tool of deception, showing people false signs and wonders through their screens. What people believe it to be real would, in fact, be carefully crafted illusions designed to manipulate minds and shake their faith. He warned that even devout believers could be fooled if they were not spiritually prepared. But this deception would go beyond technology. He saw children turning against parents, families breaking apart, and society collapsing under the weight of confusion and division. And yet, amid all of this, there would be a remnant, a small group of true believers who would be protected. The sealed message, revealed at the appointed time before his death, Padre Pio entrusted a sealed letter to one of his closest confidants. It was not to be opened until the world began to experience the exact signs he had foreseen. That letter has now been opened, and its contents are staggering. The message reveals that a great spiritual awakening will emerge from the coming chaos. But before that awakening, humanity will be tested like never before. The prophecy speaks of a collapse in the world's financial systems, banks failing overnight, governments struggling to maintain order, and a new global system rising from the ashes. This new system will promise stability and security, but hidden beneath it will be the greatest spiritual deception the world has ever seen. Policies will be implemented that seem beneficial at first, but they will slowly erode faith and morality. People will be forced to choose between convenience and truth, comfort and conviction. But here is the most astonishing part of the message. Padre Pio saw that those who remained faithful to God would be given supernatural gifts. Ordinary believers would perform miracles greater than those recorded in the Bible. The sick would be healed through prayer alone. Children would receive prophetic visions. Protection would surround those who refused to bow to the deception. How to prepare for what's coming? Padre Pio did not share this prophecy to instill fear, he shared it to prepare us. He emphasized that fear itself would be the enemy's greatest weapon, but those who put their trust in God would experience supernatural peace. The sealed message outlined specific instructions for how to endure these times, stay in a state of grace. Regular confession and deep prayer will be essential. Strengthen your faith community. Isolated believers will struggle, but together, the faithful will stand strong. Teach your children. The enemy will target the young, but parents who are spiritually prepared can shield them. Be vigilant. Not everything that appears good will be of God. Discernment will be your greatest tool. Above all, Padre Pio saw that these events would lead to the greatest spiritual revival in history. The darkness will not last forever. It will be followed by an outpouring of God's Spirit so powerful that even non-believers will be forced to acknowledge His presence. The final choice. Where do you stand? One of the most sobering aspects of the prophecy is what Padre Pio called the Great Sorting. This will not be a separation made by human hands but by divine intervention. He saw that people would be faced with small, everyday decisions that would carry enormous spiritual weight. At first, the choices will seem insignificant: whether to accept certain conveniences, whether to remain silent in the face of moral decay. But these choices will reveal the true condition of a person's heart. The time is coming when every individual will have to stand for their faith or be swept away by the deception. Padre Pio's vision is not just a warning, it is a call to action. We are not meant to be passive witnesses to these events. We are called to be active participants in God's plan. I urge you, take this message seriously. Share it with those you love. Strengthen your faith now while there is still time. Even in the darkest hour, remember this: God's light shines brightest when the world is at its dimmest. Stay vigilant. Stay faithful. And never forget you were born for such a time as this. A call to action. The time is now. There is no time for complacency. The warnings given to Padre Pio are not meant to fill us with fear but to awaken us to the reality of what is unfolding. The world is changing rapidly, and these changes are not random. They have been foretold. If we ignore them, we do so at our own peril. But here is the truth: those who remain close to God have nothing to fear. Padre Pio's prophecy was not just about destruction and deception, it was about hope. God has not abandoned His people. In fact, He has been preparing us for this very moment. Everything that is happening now is part of His divine plan, and He is calling His faithful to rise up, to be warriors of light in a time of darkness.